Hi everyone, this is Sam here, a current college student at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Welcome to my podcast, College Conscience, where we talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between with the college experience. With each episode, I focus on a different topic pertaining to college life with a different friend, and I really want to hear their perspectives and see what advice they have for me and anyone who might listen about that specific topic. Some examples include health and wellness, academics, professional career, exploration, and even more. So, if you're interested in any of those topics, please stick around and hear what my friends have to say. Hi, Tyler. Thanks so much for deciding to be on the podcast. Very excited to have you. Could you just give a quick introduction to yourself as well as the topic we'll be talking about today?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Sam. My name's Tyler Zelensky, and I am a junior at Georgetown University studying econ and stats. And the topic today is health and wellness, and we're just going to be talking about our experience and what self-care means to us and how it pertains at Georgetown.
Yeah, excited to dive in. So let's talk about you entering Georgetown back in 2020. What do you think your conceptions of health and wellness were when you were entering Georgetown?
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like there was like a very severe lack of like knowledge and just like attention towards mental health and self-care. Um, I remember in high school, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, but like we never talked about like mental health and never asked each other like, how are you doing? Like, how are you feeling mentally? Like that kind of stuff. Whereas I feel like now, like 90% of the conversations I have here are like making sure that our loved ones and our friends are okay. Um, so yeah, like before coming to Georgetown, there pretty much was no like clarity of like what self-care is and how we should be taking care of our mental health. If anything, I feel like our idea of self-care was like, oh, like let's like get our coloring books out, like let's, like let's go knit, let's go like read a book, which like fair that may work for like some people and like that's great if it does. But self-care doesn't look identical in every person's life. Um, for me personally, that is not at all what self-care looks like for me. For me, it's taking a nap. For me, it's like scrolling through Twitter or whatever it may be. Um, and sometimes it changes. Um, so yeah, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I think I also didn't hear it too much during high school. I think I just had to experience some difficult times to realize what self-care did mean. I think especially because we entered Georgetown in a Zoom environment, there seemed to be an added emphasis on self-care because I think it didn't matter if you were a student or a teacher or whatever, you realize Zoom definitely left a toll on everyone. And I think definitely as a byproduct of the environment of us being at home or even on campus, but still having to do most things remotely or online, it definitely brought self care into focus. And for me, that was going on runs, going on walks, not thinking too much every day, if that
Yeah.
makes sense, because it was very depressing fall
Mhm.
2020. But then I think also in spring of 2021, when I was able to come to the vicinity of DC and start meeting people in person, that definitely also became a form of self care, just relating to people and meeting new faces, because especially in fall of 2020, that was really hard. So I think self care also includes the bonds you make and the energy you feel with people, because it's definitely that energy exchange can be really helpful to yourself. I don't know if you have similar experiences with your friends or not.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And like I feel like my friends have like helped me through so many rough times and like especially thinking back to fall of 2020, it's like so like depressing to like go back into that mindset that like I was in. Um, but like fall 2020 was so rough. And like I wish that I wish I had these methods that I know now of how to like cope through the pain and like depression and that kind of stuff and like how to take care of myself. I wish I had those methods like in my pocket. Because that really would have helped through like the just severity of depression that like all of us experienced at the fall of 2020. Um, but yeah, I noticed there was definitely a correlation between like my mental health and like how well I was doing and like the amount I was talking to friends, like the friends I was making, and how social I was being. Because naturally, just like at least in my experience, just like being with friends, being around people, talking, and I don't know, sharing experiences just like makes me feel good and like makes me feel heard. Um, so I think like just having a good support system and a good like amount of friends around you um, is definitely like its own form of self care.
Yeah, for sure. I think that topic of just like being able to like feel heard or just like sharing in that experience, like I think a lot of people tend to maybe perhaps like too lightly use the word trauma bonding or
Yeah,
use the phrase trauma bonding
yeah,
at times. But I think in a more real way, it's kind of just like you go into some of those conversations, like it could be fall 2020, or it could just be like any recent experience as well. Not necessarily like seeking advice from your friends, but sometimes it's just like literally just saying what's on your mind and them like being receptive to it. And I think at least when I talk to some of my friends, like they've talked about their experiences about feeling pressured in those situations, like give advice or like have an answer. But I think more of the times it's just like listening to your friends. I'm curious if you've had like anything like that where have you ever been in a situation where like your friends sharing or something and you've like felt pressured to give advice or try to help them, or do you feel like it's always been more of like you understand that maybe they just want to like share and like say what they're feeling?
yeah. I've never really felt pressured to like give advice or like I don't know help a friend out, but like for me personally, like it makes me feel good just like being able to help someone. Um, and like, I don't know, if I was in like their shoes, I would want someone to like talk to me about my issues or like whatever it may be. Yeah, I don't know. I've never felt pressured, but like it just comes pretty natural to me. I don't know, maybe I'm an empath or whatever. I don't know. Um, but yeah, yeah, I think just like it's funny you mentioned trauma bonding just because I feel like all of the friends I have at Georgetown are just a result of trauma bonding. And like that's not a bad thing at all. It's just especially as juniors, like we had a really shitty experience our freshman year and like we are all able to bond over it.
Yeah, I think
So
it's like going off that's a balance of like understanding that we all went through that, but also trying to like distance ourselves from that as like
yeah.
time goes on. And I think I have not thought about fall 2020 in like the longest time. Like this is definitely bringing back a lot of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
memories. So I think it's like it's definitely a balance, right? Um, but shifting more into like back into the concept of self care as a whole, I'm curious, like, when did you start feeling that your conceptions of self care were changing into perhaps like more what you wanted them to be or what you needed them to be?
Yeah, not to talk about fall 2020 again, but at the end of the semester of our fall 2020, um I started to have like a pretty awful like mental crisis and I just really hated the feelings I was feeling and I decided to end up reaching out to CAPS, which is the Counseling and Psychiatric Services at Georgetown. Um, and they put me in touch with a therapist and they put me in touch with a psychiatrist and a lot of resources that allowed me to I don't know, come to terms with the feelings and the trauma that I was experiencing, and um, I don't know, just like methods of coping with those experiences. Um, yeah, I think it was my therapist from that semester that first laid this idea in my head that self care isn't just knitting and painting and reading a book or whatever. Self care can be whatever it may be for you. Um, and like I hate that self-care is so like commercialized um because like just to like say that like I don't know one person like can just like feel instantly better by like buying this like coloring book and like painting in it or whatever. It's just so gross. So yeah, I think that was the first figure in my life that really allowed me to say taking a nap is gonna make me feel better, so I'm gonna do that, and that's gonna make my life better, or at least my day better. Um, yeah, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, like the self care methods beyond like being with people I really enjoy, probably exercising as well. Like I don't go on as many runs as I used to, but I really like just going to Yates, which is like our recreational facility, and just trying to have a consistent routine with like the weights there as well as like the different machines. I think in its own way it's like the routineness of it and just kind of being able to focus on just like putting one foot in front of the other. Again, I'm not like running there, so I don't know why I'm using like a running metaphor, but just the general sense of that I think definitely helps. But I'm curious, like for you, you mentioned like the power of taking naps, but also what other like self-care methods have you figured out work well for you?
For me, it's literally just being with friends. Like, there's a lot of instances where like I'll be with friends and like we'll literally just like be in each other's company, like doing our own thing, like doing homework or like scrolling through, I don't know, Twitter or something like that. And like literally just like being in someone's presence is like super fulfilling to me and like can just instantly make me feel better. Um and going beyond that, just like having like a really like I love a good like deep conversation. Um and that for me is just so fulfilling and like can just brighten my mood instantly, even if it's like over just like some of the worst topics. Just like knowing that someone has like a shared experience with me, or like that I could help someone like through some pain that they were experiencing. That's like just so good for me. Um, yeah, besides that, I love a good walk. I love just like going out to a restaurant or like a fun little place with a friend. Like that's so fulfilling to me as well. And yeah, I love a good nap. I don't know if anyone that's listening is like a good like astrology person, but I'm a Taurus. I love a good nap. So
What in your opinion is like the ideal nap time, and is there like
hmm.
an ideal time of the day or night to take that nap?
Well, I'm a night owl, so sometimes like I will literally go to bed at like 5 a.m. Which I know is not healthy, but it works for me, so don't judge me. Um, but for me, I always like need to take a good nap at like 3:30. Um, I also like never have classes at that time, so like I'll just like kind of be in my bed, like in my own thoughts, and then I'll just be like, a nap sounds great right now. Um, but for me, I have a really bad habit of like taking like a 2 hour nap. And I don't know if is even considered a nap at that point. Um, but my method is always just setting an alarm for like 30 minutes out. And that's very refreshing for me.
Yeah.
And that's like just so good for me.
Yeah, and I think like especially in college, it's very important to take naps. And I think next year, like for context, me and Tyler will be living pretty close to each other, but like
Mm,
a bit further off campus. So we'll see if I don't know. It's hard to like think about going back to your house after classes and then coming back if you have more obligations. So we'll see how that
yeah,
changes next year.
yeah.
But definitely very important to have like a good awareness of like what self-care methods work for you. And you keep bringing up this theme of finding fulfillment, like helping others as well. And I know that you're pretty involved with new student orientation. So were there any moments there where you felt like not only were you learning more about like the concepts of self-care, but you could actually be helping the younger ones as they come in with these potentially new concepts to them?
Yeah, in my experience, being a part of new student orientation was so fulfilling for me. Um, for context, I like Sam and I had not the greatest NSO experience. It was online and no one really like felt like doing anything, and like we were just so disconnected from reality at that point. Um, but my going into junior year, one of my best friends of all time, she ended up convincing me to become an orientation advisor for NSO. And I said yes against my will, basically, and I ended up coming to campus a week early and all of this stuff. And we go through like this official training of like how to facilitate discussions of like with freshmen about things like mental health and Georgetown's like problematic history and the Jesuit values and that kind of stuff. And like the panel about like taking care of yourself really, really spoke to me just because being able to, I don't know, talk, like have an open discussion with freshmen about how important mental health and self-care is was like it was just so like fulfilling for me because I never really had that conversation as a freshman and I wish I did. Um so yeah, just like being able to talk about my experiences and yeah, just being able to help freshmen was like so nice for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that you are likely to maintain your involvement with new student orientation for next year. So, and since self care is something very important, it should be to all of us, but clearly, like you've had a lot of growth there. If you were to like continue to be involved with new student orientation for this upcoming August, like, do you have any goals or ideas on how you want to like continue promoting those concepts of self care to the incoming freshmen?
Yeah, I feel like even in just like the past 2 months since NSO this past year, like my idea of self-care is like continue to evolve and like it'll continue to change throughout the course of junior year. Um in May, I don't know what like my perception of self-care will like really look like, but it's I don't know. I'm pretty confident that it'll be different than it is now, which is kind of wild to think about. But um yeah, I think just like continuing to express like the fact that self-care does like it does not look the same for everyone. Um and I think that's so important to like ingrain into like a freshman's head is just like don't look at your friends and like what helps them. Like think about what like really helps you and like go with that.
Yeah, for sure. And just as like a wrap up question, I'm curious, like you just said that potentially in a few months you don't know what your self care would look like, but are there any like current developments in your self care that you find interesting or things that like you hadn't done before? Like, is there anything currently changing that like you find interesting or yeah, just you're curious about?
Yeah, this isn't like a very like I don't know concrete like method of self-care or anything like that, but like I like really come to terms with the fact that I think myself and everyone in this world should prioritize themselves over anyone. Um, like I think that I like have always struggled with prioritizing myself in my life. I tend to prioritize friends and like family and that kind of stuff and like go out of my way to like help other people. But like the truth is that like if you can't be the best form of yourself, you're not going to help anyone. Um, so yeah, I think that just like prioritizing myself in any way possible is like the way to go. Um, and that's something that I want to continue to explore and evolve over the next, few months or so.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much, Heather, for
Yeah,
being on the podcast. I really appreciated hearing what you had to say about self care, but also just in general, like life at Georgetown. I think it's always evolving. So, yeah, just really appreciate your time.
yeah. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. This is Sam here, a current college student at Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. Welcome to my podcast, College Conscience, where we talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between with the college experience. With each episode, I focus on a different topic pertaining to college life with a different friend, and I really want to hear their perspectives and see what advice they have for me and anyone who might listen about that specific topic. Some examples include health and wellness, academics, professional career, exploration, and even more. So if you're interested in any of those topics, please stick around and hear what my friends have to say.